situation. Yes. So today, we're going to go through the information and um, learn how to cope or find different strategies, um, techniques, things that we didn't even know we had inside of us to cope. So I'm going to tell you my story, a little bit of my story in a little bit, but let's go to the main part of this presentation. And I'm going to read this, the first slide. It says, losing a loved one is one of the hardest parts of life, and it can lead to depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and even substance abuse. And an amazing, interesting statistic is that seniors face the death of a spouse more than any other age group. And we know why, because they're all getting up in age and one usually goes before the other. So learning to live without their partners, their life partners, might feel impossible at first. You know, grief can be overwhelming, even when it's not a surprise, meaning that that person's had a long-term illness and you knew that day would come. Even when that day came, you know, it is still overwhelming. And in addition to sadness and crying, aging adults in the midst of this grieving and bereavement process might have some variety of experiences. They might isolate themselves from friends and families. They might lose sleep. They may maybe change your eating habits or even have trouble concentrating. And that's just a few of the experiences people might have. But before I go to the next slide, I want to share a little bit about myself. I just turned 65 on the 22nd of January, and yes, thank you. No, I don't look it. I wish I could take the mute off so that we can laugh together. Anyway, that's a little humor always helps. So I lost a spouse around about age 5 years ago, for almost 5 years ago. Yes. And he was 62, and it was by a heart attack, you know. Yes, there were moments of different sicknesses and ailing and so on. And he had a heart surgery, like triple bypass and so on. And after a few months, he was back in the hospital for some different things. He was discharged the day I picked him up. He was discharged in the afternoon, and I brought him home. And at 10 o'clock at night, it was a Tuesday night, it was May 17th, 10 p.m., I looked over. I was sitting on a love seat, and I looked over. He was sitting on the couch. I saw him get up, and he started like moving and shaking, and then I saw him brought himself back to the couch, and it just threw himself on the couch, and you know, started panting and for breath. And I heard that last breath. Yeah, I mean, all this was like seconds. I flew off the couch, and I, you know, touching his face and saying, honey, you know, what's happening? And then I realized what was happening. I dialed, you know, 911, and then I proceeded to do a CPR, and they kind of, you know, walked me through it. And surprisingly, I brought him back. He was a big guy, you know. I brought him back, and when they came and took over, and of course took him to the hospital. But by the time, and they insisted that I don't drive, and my neighbor should take me, and we followed the ambulance and so on. And by the time I got there, you know, they took me to the little room. And of course I knew what was happening, of course. And then I went to view his body. So, and I also am now married to a pastor who lost his spouse. Um, she was 65, but she had a long-term illness for many years, and it was something they, were expecting. But as I said, um, expecting this and when it does happen, it's two different things. So we both comfort each other, and I'm so blessed that um, he shares and I share, and we are not we don't feel uncomfortable when we're sharing about our spouses. And I think that's such a blessing. So anyway, so as we age, death and loss become more common in our families, in social circles, our friends and the people we hang out with and so on. Grief is painful at any age. It's not something you ever get used to, but it's often overlooked in older adults because for some of those things that I mentioned earlier, maybe because they think that we expect it as we get older, that we will be able, we learn how to handle it and manage it better and so on. And for the another reason would be because when you're older, your friends, your family, people that you grew up with, they tend to, move on. And so that could be an assumption. But dealing with loss isn't easy. But understanding the grieving process and learning coping skills can help us get through it, help you get through it. And so I know that if any of you have lost loved ones, or you have loved ones that are, on their way out, these are things that you think about constantly. So today we're going to get some answers and get some other explanations, coping skills, and discover, as I said, things inside of us that will help us to cope. And so receiving the news that a loved one is dying can be devastating. And, not because we're elderly, we're just focused on a spouse. It could be a child, it could be a sibling, it could be a friend, and so it's never, ever something that you get used to. It's always devastating, and we grieve in so many different ways. So if you've had that experience, we'll talk about how you felt later in the presentation and talk about some of the things that you worry about. So grieving and mourning, they're two words that kind of interchange that people use. Mourning a loved one. Everyone goes through grief and loss, but most people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about death. But it's important to acknowledge, to know what's happening, to know that something did happen, or it is happening, or about to happen, and processing death. So acknowledging and processing death is a very difficult, but it's important experience, because we all have to go through that at some time. But unfortunately, the death of loved ones become more and more common as people age in life. As I said, the people you grew up with, the siblings and so on, and friends and family members, you hear, so-and-so has gone on, and brother so-and-so, or, people you went to school with and so on, the numbers increase. And that's the very reason why people think that you should get used to it. But unfortunately, that's not the case. We may lose the loss of a spouse, siblings, friends, family members, and so on. So when someone close to you passes away, it's normal to experience a change in identity. And what do I mean by that? For example, if you lose a spouse, then all of a sudden, your new identity is a widow. And I remember that in between, I'll be sharing, experiences of my experience and other people's experience. I found it kind of a little bit traumatic to write widow, on forms and stuff like that. How was that something that I was planning on doing or preparing for, and writing the word widow was different. And of course, it'd be the same for a spouse who's a male. He would be a widower. So now your identity change, and if you have adult children, they might want you to come live with them. They don't want you to be on your own. They might think that you're incapable of managing things. And that could be true to some extent if you're a woman and your husband managed, a lot of the affairs, and now he's gone, and you really didn't get time to learn these things. That could be could affect how you feel about yourself, your self-esteem, and so on. So your identity can change in many ways, and that's an example. So, but you don't forget the importance of the relationship, even though your identity changed now to a widow or a widower, and you don't have to stop identifying with that relationship. But the death of a loved one can change your current role in your family structure or circle of friends. Maybe your husband's friend, and he passed on. Your husband's friends, they don't call the house anymore. They don't check on you like when your husband was alive, or if the husband passed away, they don't. If the wife passed away, they don't check on the husband like they used to, or the wife's family don't check on the husband, or the husband's family don't check on the wife. So there's so many different subtle changes that really can have an impact on you, and how your role in the family, your circle of friends, and so on. So the loss of a friend, losing a friend that you've chosen to keep in your life for a long time, sometimes from school age, grade 1, grade 2, and all the way through. But others may not recognize that as that death is important. They just think it's it's a friend, and you shouldn't be as distraught as if it were a family member. So they tend to minimize the grief or expect you to recover quickly, and that's a misnomer. Your friend was like a sister or a brother, and so it can be extremely isolating and can make you feel like you have to internalize that grief, because people don't understand when you express yourself in how you feel about losing that friend. So there are many misconceptions about death and grief that can make mourning even a more difficult experience. Some of the ones that I expressed just now, and some of the ones we'll be talking about a little later. Our society expects people to get used to grief as they age and lose more of their loved ones, as I pointed out. But no matter how many times you've experienced loss, experiencing that loss, it doesn't get easier just because, well, this is the third time someone in my family died within so many months or whatever. That part never gets easier. We're going to talk about the part how we cope, and our life, we can manage things better. So it's two different things. There's also the misconception that losing friends isn't as important as losing family members. So for some, the death of a friend is much more difficult than the death of a family member. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? That friend that is a dear friend all, so many years, they've gone on, and it's really painful. Why? Why is this painful? We humans we're hardwired for connection. We're social beings. We like to be connected to people. And, many of you might know that song, it's an old song, No Man is an Island. We weren't meant to be in this world by ourselves, even from the beginning of time, biblically. So when we lose our attachment to someone, we can feel, somewhat disoriented, somewhat distraught, confused, frustrated, don't know how to respond to certain things. One minute I feel this way, next minute I feel that way. Many of you have been married for 30, 40, or 50 years. So the death of a spouse is often referred to that person like they've lost a part of them, a part of their body, a part of their, an appendage, like some part of you is gone. And because of that, I just can't feel normal again. Those are some of the emotions and experiences. So talking about that bond can help you realize that you don't have to wipe the connection out of your mind. You can talk about it with someone. And as I mentioned earlier, I feel very blessed that I can share my experiences with my now husband, and he shares his experiences with me. And I really count that as a true blessing. So what are some of the things we worry about? There's fear of the unknown. How I'm going to take care of the household, how I'm going to do this, how am I going to die alone? All the things that you used to do together and doing it by yourself. The fear of the unknown. What will happen after death? How's life going to pan out for me? What will happen to the loved ones? Um, you yourself who's left behind, or maybe a child that was very close to their dad or their mom or grandchildren, things like that. And you might ask the question, how can I live without that person, especially, the spouse of many years? And my current spouse, he was married to his wife for 40 years. So can you imagine some of the discussions we would typically have, or some of the observations I make, when I see how he's reacting to maybe something that they bought, or a place they went together, or things they did, and that happened to come up for observation or discussion. So those are types of experiences that we have too. So in coping with loss, there's some things that we can do, we can change, that will help this journey a bit more manageable. Rituals, for example, rituals can help you keep the bond with your loved one alive and allow you to function in your daily life. These rituals might involve cleaning out the loved ones, their home, they're writing them a letter, their closet, and home, if you didn't live with them, or if you live with them, the things, removing the things from the home, the things that were near and dear to them, that every time you see it, it triggers a lot of emotions. But it helps you to keep the bond with that person, because you're actually doing something with that person. If you like, for that person, you're not pushing it away and you're not dealing with it if you're cleaning out the things. And I know that you might know too, that there are some situations where you go to some homes, and if it were a husband and a wife, and one's gone on, a lot of times the one left behind tends not to, especially if they're really up in age, they tend to just leave everything the way it is, and other family members or friends will have to come in and move things around, because they feel that connection. So that's how they deal with that. So we can get help to organize our daily tasks so that we can prioritize and make decisions that are based on our needs, because we still have to live. You still have to live. You still have to heal from the trauma. So, and at the beginning, this may seem so difficult to do, very hard thing to do, because you don't have the energy, you can't concentrate, you can't focus, and you might feel like, well, you're trying to get rid of that person, but you're not. So solicit help from someone that's near and dear to you, and of course maybe the person that went on, to organize your day so that you get things done, and you're also taking care of yourself. Because I know there are situations where you might feel like just laying in the bed all day or staying on the couch, and that's okay. But when it's day after day after day after day, then you're not caring for yourself, and you're putting yourself in a position where you could get ill. You know, I remember myself, for example, that I didn't open the curtain for months. For months, I didn't open the curtain. That I stayed in the dark, you know, and I stayed in my bedroom. And those are some of my experiences. So when you get help with someone to kind of organize your tasks, there are things for you to accomplish, there are things for you to do. You're actually staying, you're concentrating, and you're taking care of yourself. And you're also, some of these things that you're organizing can have something to do with the person that went on. You know, it doesn't have to be completely devoid of them, or no memory of them. You can clean out the closet one day, go to the mail another day, you know, things like that. I still get mails with my husband's name on it, you know. So it's a continuous process. And of course, I deal with it a whole lot better now than in the beginning. So set goals and set up your routines that will encourage you to thrive, even though you're dealing with loss. And you'll learn to adjust life without the deceased person while keeping your bond strong. And that's something you have to do, you know, over and over, and allow yourself those days when you don't feel like doing anything. You just feel like sulking. When it gets to be concerning is when it's a day after day after day after day situation. So towards the end of this presentation, we'll go through some activities, we'll go through some things that are really healthy, that really keep you keep your bond with the person that you lost, but still put you in a position of coping. All right. So the most important thing to remember about grieving or mourning is that everyone has a different process. So we ourselves have to watch what we say to ourselves and what we say to other people, because we look at, you know, well, Cousin Joe, he didn't appear to grieve for a long time. You know, he just got on with his life. And so what's wrong with me? I'm stuck. But, you know, you might start to feel a little bit of guilt, ask yourself some questions, but always remember that everyone grieves differently. And what did I say in the beginning? That there's no duration about grieving. Yeah, grief doesn't go away if you're ignoring. So we have to deal with it. So I can't get, I'm getting excited when I get to the part where we talk about all the things that we can do to help this process better. And I know that you're itching to get on and raise your hand. So, you know, jot down those questions that you might want to ask so that we could have a chat about it. How about that? All right. Acknowledging and validating your own loss is the most important step towards recovering after the death of a friend or family member. You know, that means that, you know, you understand what happened. You're not trying to push it under the rug. You're not going in the room every day talking to him or her. You know it happened, and you are going to be coping. Regardless of whether or not others recognize your grief, you have to actually process the feelings. Nobody can do that but you. Nobody could have done it but me, for me, you know. First, remember that everything you feel is normal and acceptable. So it doesn't become abnormal or unacceptable because it's not like Sister Sheila or Auntie Alice or so, you know, that doesn't mean because they did things differently, they grieve differently. It doesn't mean that yours is abnormal or unacceptable. And again, there's no right or wrong way. to grieve or to mourn, and you cannot change the way you feel. You had that relationship with that person. I had that relationship with that person. So try not to feel guilty over any of the emotions you experience, and don't let anyone, uh, you know, cause you to feel that way either while you're grieving. Allow yourself to grieve. Allow yourself to mourn for however long it takes. Yeah, you don't have to follow any kind of timeline or framework about grieving. There's nothing written as to how long it should take. All right. Once you're ready to start engaging activities again, it's important to change your routine or do something new. Because if you get up and start doing things exactly the way that you did it when you're that person that you lost was alive, you know, it's going to be difficult to get out of that and to cope. That means you're not really accepting it. You haven't validated it. You haven't, like, you know, accepted that this thing happened. So we have to watch for things like that. And if you know someone who's lost a loved one and they show, you know, behaviors similar to that, you know, try to recognize it, and hopefully you'll be able to share some of the things we'll talk about later with them, in addition to what you already do. So when you go through the motions of your normal routine, it's easy for your mind to wander off and dwell on anxious and negative thoughts. You know, it's easy for the mind to do that when you go through your normal routine. That's why we have to change things up a little bit. So also, if your loved one was a part of certain aspects of your daily routine, as I said, now you're doing this by yourself, that could be painful. I remember every month I used to go to a conference at the end of the month, and it was always my husband and I. We would make this trip to Orlando, and it was a couple hours. And so, on a Friday and come back on a Sunday evening. And man, I remember that first Friday, when I drove up there, I had company because I was dropping someone off. But man, the way back, that was so traumatic. I cried on the phone the whole 2 hours with my husband's mother on the line. They lived in a different state, so that, you know, that can be a little bit challenging too. But and that's because we did that together. There are lots of things we did together, so we have to try to get out of routine. I mean, I couldn't stop going to the conference. I could have probably had someone else come with me. And I did start writing with some other people, but most of the time it was by myself. So that was a process for me to learn to make that trip on my own. But if we can control some of the daily routine things that we do, change it up a little bit, that would help. Make small changes to your routine, and that can help us stay focused for the present moment. For example, try going to the grocery store in a different way, or a different grocery store, even better. Take a different route if you used to go for walks and stuff, go a different way. You know, try going in a different direction. Listen to a new song, read a book, a new book. And if you used to be the caretaker for a loved one who passed away, find a hobby or volunteer opportunity that can direct your time and attention, that you can direct your time and attention toward. And you'll be out and about, you'll be using your talents, your skills. You still have those things that you've been blessed with, that you want to share and help other people. And it always blesses my heart when I go to a hospital and I see those men and women in, you know, those colorful uniforms, pushing wheelchairs, doing this, doing that, you know, and they choose the days or hours that they want to do that. But they're helping others, you know, or maybe you go into school and read to to kindergarten children or volunteer. There's so many things that we can do to continue to, because life still goes on, and we still have skills and abilities and things that we want to share, we want to help people with. Yeah. So coping with that involves finding a balance between acknowledging your feelings and continuing to live a meaningful life. And we know, getting around this, navigating around this isn't easy, and it isn't the same for everyone, but we got to find that balance. Continuing on after you lose someone can be a daily challenge, but you have to allow yourself to grieve. But at the same time, give yourself permission to live. Yeah. So that's very important. So let me make sure. I think I missed my turn was. Okay. So it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to talk about it. Don't ever feel that, but of course, it's who you talk to. You don't want to talk to somebody who will pass judgment and start telling you you should be over it by now, and at least you got so and so left, at least you got, your health. And, people say insensitive things like that. A lot of times they don't mean harm, but and they're thinking they're helping you. And, let's make sure that we don't fall in that category. So if you can talk to someone who will listen without judgment. Yes. So we all come from different backgrounds, and we all have different personal stories. Even our culture can influence the way that we deal with end of life situations and circumstances and the grieving process. So many different cultures have their different rituals and their different things. So don't pay attention to anybody else. Pay attention to what you're used to in your culture, in your family, and experience just that, and be sure that that we're not passing judgment on someone else. Family is an intimate network and defined in different ways. There's a number that I'd like to share with you. 22% of older people do not have spouses or children, and they're known as elder orphans. And who knows, I might be speaking to some of you right now who have no spouses and no children. And you are typically known as an elder orphan. So that's where friends come in, So look to your friends, fill the gap, your faith community, civic organizations that you might attend, any place where they make you feel like family, that's so important. It's okay to seek comfort too, right? A close friend or family member who also knew the person you lost could be a great source of support during this difficult time. And you can also find a grief support group in your area where you live to connect with others who are mourning. And another option is to connect with a counselor, maybe get some counseling, because mourning and grieving can be a complicated process. It can be challenging, especially going through it alone. And we don't have to do that, because everyone loses someone at some point or another. We know the process is different, and we want to be able to be a comfort, and we know that someone could be a comfort to us too. So, but there's a couple of don'ts that we don't want it to, we got to be aware of.
Yeah.
Do not repeatedly tell people. Do not repeatedly tell people with the dementia, for example, that their loved one has died, even if they ask, because this could be harmful for them. We don't want to, it could be traumatic for them, because it's like all happening all over again. But you don't have to lie, but rather just pay attention to the feelings that they're having at that moment. And when they're asking about their deceased loved one, and, you know, try to discern whether they're anxious or they're scared, what's going on. And we should never tell people, those that are grieving, not to cry, or we shouldn't expect them to cry when we think they should be crying. I remember when I had the service at the memorial for my husband, I was just making sure everything went the way it was planned, had to go, and making sure everything's in order. I didn't shed a tear, not one tear. But when that church door closed and I threw myself in that chair, man, I broke down. And if someone who didn't see me do that, they would say, she didn't even cry. So we have to be careful. We don't tell, people who are grieving, don't cry, don't cry. It's going to be okay. Or even ask, call them and say, how you doing? They don't even know how they're doing sometimes. We don't know how we're doing sometimes, and you don't have to rush to make the pain go away. It just go with the flow. Just don't stay stuck. So let's look at some self-care ideas for people who grieve. And we're getting to the part where we're going to interact and engage. So take a walk, for example. Take a walk, hike in the woods, go on a nature trail, go around the neighborhood. The exercise will do you good, and you'll never know what you'll see or connect with, Take a nap when you need a nap. Smile. Read something that's short, that's funny, that has nothing to do with, what you're currently going through. Nothing, that you have to be heavily focused. Just read books that will help you focus on something other than what you're used to. And play. What's play? Play is any purposeless kind of fun. Get some fresh air, get some sunlight, have a good cry, all that's important. And we have, I'm going to take a break here right now and see if you got any questions. We have a few more topics to suggestive ideas of getting through the coping process. So I'm going to pause right here because I know you're probably know me. You can't wait to get involved. So Cheryl Edwards raised her hand. Let's see.
I'm looking.
Cheryl,
yes, I'll on. Yeah, she's.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Hi, Dr. Laura. Hi, Ms. James. Wonderful presentation. I really appreciate it. I had a lot of questions, and number 21 slide kind of like puts it all together for me. My questions were answered. And what I would add to this is that nowadays, when the loved one has passed on, we do it as a celebration of life, which I so much prefer as opposed to back in the day when you're wailing and passing out and all that kind of stuff. So I think it puts on a different concept. You're celebrating the life of the person. You're not forgetting the person, because that's what bothered me most. You don't want to forget the person. You don't. I was in the health business, and I always remember when we go to work, you leave work in the morning, you go back 11 o'clock at night, and your favorite person have died, and it's business as usual. And it eated me up. No. We had loved her. He gave us fun in the nighttime. You have people who, clients who were fun with us in the night. So I don't want, so I'm glad now that we're celebrating, because we don't want to forget.
Yes, very important.
Yeah. Wonderful presentation. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's such an important point, and thank you for sharing that. It's celebration of life, and it brings it brings a different perspective to the person celebrating their life. Yes. Is there another hand? I'll take maybe two more before I get back into the this points.
No, no one, no hands up at this
No
time.
hand.
Yeah, we do have one more. Go ahead, Queen Jones.
Hi.
Hi.
Death for me, my son was killed suddenly in Washington, D.C. in 1988.
Mm,
And when it's an expected loss, it's different. It's
mhm.
different because you ain't expected. If somebody's sick and die, you will never really be prepared, but you can kind of be prepared.
Yeah.
But when somebody dies suddenly, it's a different death. And I've been told that when you're talking about the person, say the person's name.
Yeah.
And yes, and you're so on when you say allow people to grieve how they want to. Sometimes just your presence is enough. You ain't got to say nothing. You
That's
ain't got
right.
to say, oh, people say stuff that you think gonna help, but you're hurting. When
Mhm.
people say, well, God knows best.
Mhm.
We know God knows best. So right now, that ain't helping me.
Right. Yeah.
I just want to be realistic about stuff. And so
Yeah.
it's okay, however you grieve and however long they grieve, leave folks alone and let them do what they do.
That's
But
right.
just being there sometimes could be enough, because when you have, and I want to make this really short, last point, going to funerals, they ain't going to remember nothing you said, but they're going to know who came, period.
Right.
That's just my thought.
Mm. Yes.
Okay,
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
thank you, Queen Jones. We have another question by Rosalind Bell. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Rosalind. Rosalind, where are you?
Yes, I'm
Go
here.
ahead. Mhm.
Hey,
Okay,
Rosalind.
I have lost two loved ones in my family, my mother and my husband just recently in 13. But when I lost my mother, I couldn't cry. Like I would always say to myself, if anything happened to my mother, I'm gonna be strong.
Mhm.
And I was strong, but it was my sister that somehow messed it up, because when I went to pick her up, I notified my other two sisters that my mother had passed away, and they said we had to come down to the hospital to identify the body.
Mm.
Okay, when I went to pick up my youngest sister, which she lived in my mother's house and was the worstest one in the family, well, she had already destroyed my mother's house by tearing up Jesus pictures and stuff in there. Hollering, screaming, why not me? Why you couldn't take me? And stuff like that. But I said, Modine, you're gonna have to restrain yourself, because we have to go to the hospital. This is wrong what you're doing. So anyway, we got to the hospital. She carried on again. They had to give her a knockout drop or something to put her to sleep, because she was disturbing other patients, running all up and down the hospital. Where's my mommy? Where's my mother? And anyway, at the time of the funeral, I was so mad with her, I could not cry. And it took me a long time, I think around about 8 months, to grieve over my mother. That's how much madness I had in my heart for my sister, the way she carried on and everything like that. So it took me a long time. I think it was around about 8 months. I started crying then.
Yeah.
I had forgot about all the issues with her, and I started crying a lot. I found myself like every week crying over my mother's death.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was different. Like when I lost my husband. Okay, I couldn't sleep at that time when I lost him, and well, he had diabetes also, and I do too. But it taught me to change my eating habits, my food habits, and everything, because at the last 10 years of our marriage, like he had got a younger lady, was going out with her, buying drugs for her and everything like that, and he was still drinking, but he wasn't buying his insulin. So
Mm,
finally, he had to go in the hospital, and that's when I asked him. I said, "Do you have your insulin with you? You know, and everything like that." He said, no, he hadn't been taking it. You know, but
yeah,
he asked
yeah.
me, could he come and live with me? And I said, yes, you know, long as you don't have no ladies hanging around here and you're not permitted to drink in my house,
Mhm,
because I had stopped drinking. During the time of my mother's death, I started drinking about a year after she passed away,
mhm,
you know.
yeah.
Okay,
And
Rosalind,
So, yeah.
Rosalind, can we just hold for now? We're
Mm.
pretty much close to two. Dr.
Oh,
Lofton have a
oh,
few more slides to share. And we've got
Yeah.
like 4 many hands
oh,
up. So for those of you
okay.
whose hands are up, can you hold your questions just for a few more minutes? Let her finish your
Mhm.
slides, and then we'll go with you first, okay? Thank you for
All
your
right.
patience. Go ahead,
Yes.
Dr.
Okay.
Lofton.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
well, with my husband, I found myself not being able to sleep and
Mhm. So,
Okay, go ahead, Dr.
so,
Lofton.
yeah, so we'll continue as Ms. James said, in the question Q&A section. Let me just finish the slides that are left. And I hear you. I hear you with and I know that you would make changes for your how you handle things, how you cope because of your past experiences. All right, so we want to engage in a game or activity that requires us to focus. And that means we're not just, doing something that our minds can easily drift away. And a person said they completed a 1,000-piece puzzle. And she went on to say, I must warn you, while it was incredibly soothing, I also forgot to do laundry, feed my children, change out my sweatpants until it was until its completion 4 days later. When I read that, like, wow. So for something a little less time consuming, try your papers, crossword. You have it on your tablet, crosswords or Sudoku, which is a game where you try to everything in the cube has to add up to 9. Practice patience, practice forgiveness, very important, practice kindness, practice gratitude. And these are things we hear in other aspects of our life about, patience, forgiveness, kindness, gratitude, and they are very good for the soul. They are. And I know that you know that too, those who practice it. Plan a night out with your friends, go to your favorite restaurant, see a show, attend a sporting event. These are just some suggestions and things that others have done to help them with the coping process. Establish a better work-life balance. So when you have your daily routines that you do, it's has different components in it, and it will keep you interested in different things, and have enough time for you doing what you do, and have enough time for things to enjoy your life and have fun. And also a simple thing such as deep breathing. It works wonders for the brain, wonders for the body. Listen to your favorite music or person that in your playlist. Go somewhere that makes you feel at ease. Spring clean, make a giveaway pile. And all the time take stock of your support system. Who can you count on? Who can you count on? Because that's important. You don't want to be in an environment with someone who is going to cause you to have a regress or fall back, or go into a place where you're talking, you're sharing, and they're not understanding you. Looking through old photographs. Remember, we didn't say to just shut everything away and pretend it didn't happen. Look through old photographs. You'll have some really fond memories of those times. Have a one-on-one with your children, and that means one child at a time. That really helps with the bonding. Cuddling with your children, your grandchildren, siblings, whatever. reduces stress and can make you happy. It's not just a thing, it actually has a chemical reaction. When you're stress-free, when you're happy, there's a chemical that produces in your body that really helps you to feel happy. See a movie. And a lot of people do that as an activity to help them with their grief. My husband loves movies. He's got the thing that he signed up with the movies down here where I live, and he sees a lot of movies for free. He loves that. And he says there are things that he learned about life, from watching movies. Watch funny YouTube videos. Yeah, there's some funny things on there that can make you laugh and you forget that you're grieving or mourning. Try it, trust me. Watch other videos on YouTube. Have some self-compassion. Don't be too hard on yourself if you feel yourself drifting back. Have compassion. Plan a weekend getaway. Treat yourself to a day of relaxation, just doing nothing. Try a new hobby, photography, something you've never tried, or maybe something you wanted to try, but too busy raising a family, having a home, taking care of a husband, whatever. Photography, journaling, scrapbooking, cooking, baking, or even making your doctor's appointment, your dentist appointment for the year. Those places that allow you to do it. Yeah, I know, grown, but good health is part of self-care. Remember, we're talking about self-care, things that we could do to help ourselves be healthy in the process. Cross something off your bucket list. You don't have a bucket list? Then create one. And it's such fun when you cross something off that bucket list that you always wanted to do and put it on your list, and now you've done it. Get into an exercise routine. And I don't need to talk about the benefits of exercise. We all know that. And if you take alcohol, you might want to cut back on it a little bit. And you can also be creative, with your scrapbooking, with your photography, with your cooking, your baking, whatever it is. Maybe changing up your house, the inside of your house, rearranging things. And don't feel bad that, you're arranging the house and now it doesn't look like when your husband was alive, when your wife was alive, when your grandma was alive, or whatever. Be creative. That's all part of the process. Remember, you have to keep telling yourself, this is normal. There's nothing not normal about this. Join a support group. And, support groups are wonderful things. You find other people with like experience, sharing things like kind of what we're doing here. And you might discover something, oh, I could do that, or I could have done that, or I will do that, or I did this and it really worked, things like that. And it helps you feel a sense of empowerment, and you don't feel, as lonely as if you're trying to do it all by yourself. And also I know we live in a time where we can't get out and about because of, the pandemic and so on, but there are opportunities to do this online, as we are doing now. Seek online grief support. You could do that too. Make a plan to start eating healthy if you're not already doing that, or make it even better. And then go eat a piece of chocolate and pour yourself a cup of coffee. Don't let things hang over your head. Either do them or choose not to do them, and not let them, hang over your head. I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta do this, I don't have the strength to do anything. That can really cause you to be in a place of after your depression and loneliness, if you're experiencing that. So don't let things hang over your head. And that might take some strength to do that in the beginning. But I can tell you, once you start doing it, it becomes easier. Things that you have to do, but you've been putting off. So be proactive. Sing at the top of your lungs. Well, a lot of people, we do it in the bathroom, don't we? We want to sing at the top of your lungs, by yourself, in the bathroom, whatever. Or just dance a crazy dance, careful, in your space that you don't knock anything over or fall down or bump into anything. Open the windows. Allow yourself a day of unapologetic sulking. I gonna stay in my pajamas all day today and I don't care. Just allow yourself that. I've done that. It's a good feeling. when these things become an issue, if you're doing it day after day after day after day, always remember that. So allow yourself. Retail therapy, some people like to go shopping. If you can, then go shopping. It says here, Time Magazine says it's a good thing to do. And stretch. Do a lot of stretching. Stretching is so good. Or even now you could be a comforter. You can comfort someone in their time of need. And still with 207. Spend time in a place where you feel close to your deceased one. Play a sport, take a yoga class, find ways to make your work day, if you go to work, healthier. Phone an old friend. Throw your plants out the window for a day and a few days and don't do anything. Go for a drive. Okay, so those are some things that we can do to help us through the grieving process. And there are things that you know that's not on this list, and we have a few minutes that we can talk about it, we can share. But remember, that ends a life, not a relationship. You don't have to forget about that person. You don't have to push it under the rug or pretend it didn't happen. Okay, so let's chat. Let's chat. Thank you for listening to my voice. Tell you things you probably already know, and I hope that there's some things that you'd like to now put in place and practice. But let's chat. It's time for raising your hands, and I know that Ms. Teresa, she's monitoring the clock, so let's see what we can get in the time that we have left.
Okay, so our first person is going to be Alicia. Please unmute yourself and begin talking.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lofton. It's been fabulous. I just had a question about things to say to people, because a couple of times I've said things to people that were like, this one woman lost her son. He was 28 on a motorcycle accident in DC. She was in LA. She flew here and I knew her from the past. So I said, oh, well, you'll just be in shock the first year. And I said, why did I say that? That was horrible. But after both of my parents died, I felt it helped me to be more just open to other people whose people had died, because I was familiar with death because of the day my father died. I came back to work in DC and people knew he died, but they all looked at me and they kind of went the other way. They didn't know what to say. And I felt awful because no one said anything.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So
yeah, and that's
what are you some of this? I'd say 2 or 3 things to never say. I mean, you've given us a couple, and then 3 things that'd be really good to say.
Yeah, so I exactly what your emotions are when like people turn because they don't know what to say to you. But one of the things that is so simple, and I hear my husband says it all the time. It's like, how can I help you? What can I do?
Oh, that's good.
It's simple, and the person, it's not overwhelming, and it's easy for you to be able to just say that. Call me anytime. I know that we say it sometimes, but we have to be careful that when that person does call, we answer the phone. Just call me anytime.
Right.
I'm available. Just call me anytime. Would you like us to do something together? Of course, it depends on the relationship or whatever. Would you like to go out to lunch? Or we can go to the trail and walk, depending on your relationship with that person. But it's never, just it's not going to be judgmental. It's not going to be questioning them. It's just when you know that I'm here, and I'm here to help you. I just don't know what to say because I'm not you. I'm not walking in your shoes. I'm not having your specific experience, but at least we can start to open up and share this way. I hope that's helpful.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alicia. So we have time for one more question.
Can
Because we're getting to that
one
2:15 hour. No, Patricia is that person. She's been waiting a very long time. I'm going to ask her to unmute. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Patricia.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Patricia.
I have lost members of my family But the one that really sticks with me is when I lost my son. That seemed to hurt more than anything else. And I heard Miss Queen, I believe it was, but she lost a son. And I wanted to let her know I'm so sorry about that. But my son was not killed. He just laid down one day and didn't wake up. He wasn't sick, so we thought. But what has given me relief, and is to know that no one meant him any harm. I hear about all these killings with people killing young people for whatever reason. And I always think back to when I was a kid, we just fought, and the next day or two, we were back together. So I wanted to send my condolences to her, because somehow or another it's a relief to me to know that no one actually meant my son any harm, hated him enough to want to kill him. And he just laid down and died. But losing a child is a totally different thing. At least for me, it was. I lost my mom, my father, my uncle. I lost a sibling, and stuff. So, I lost my mate years ago, and everything. I dealt with all that, but this dealing with my son is kind of hard. And it's been 7 years, so it's still new to me.
Yes.
But I'm able to do that. I still have other children. But what gets me is when people ask me, how many children do you have? And I say 3, but then I explained that one of them has died. They said, well, you only got 2 kids then. I said, no, 3, But anyway, the grieving process, I had to get help with mine. I went to a therapist to do these things. I would say that helped me more so than anything else.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I'm going to leave it right there so someone else can share.
Okay, thank you very much, Patricia. I'd like to actually confess something. Dr. Laura is my sister.
Okay.
I asked her if she would be willing to do this. I mean, because I know that the rates would have been really exuberant if I'd gone to, someone else to bring someone else to speak on this topic. So I just want to say, I have you all show your appreciation to her for taking this time to prepare the information and listening and sharing her experience with you.
Thank you.
Fabulous.
You're welcome.
Thank you both.
This was
Thank you
great.
very much.
You're
Great
welcome.
presentation.
She was really good, and she explained everything and told us the things that we have been through. She has been through them also, especially about her husband when he passed.
Yep.
So I would do the same thing, but just like you said, we have to learn to adjust without them and cope with what's coming now, because we got to still live, but we still miss them every day. And we still dream of them. And when we dream of them, they're right with us still.
Yes.
So that's important. And thank you very much, Dr. Laura.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure to be here with you, and I'd love the opportunity to be here again should the opportunity arises. So thank you so much. And I have to say, God bless each and every one of you in your journey.
God bless you too.
Yes.
Thank you,
God bless
Dr.
you too.
Laura.
Thank you so much.
This was very good.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you.
So, okay.
Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you, Teresa.
You're
Thank
more
you.
than welcome. If you have any
Thank you.
questions outside, not referring to Dr. Lofton, please, you can stay on and ask me, and then we'll wrap it up. Any questions? Everyone, remember that we have another special event tomorrow. That would be the interest group. And if I recall, it is who's doing it this week? I think I've got to get, let me find out who's doing it. I said, I drew a blank. Please forgive me. Like I said, I am up there with you all, so memory retention is slips. We have an interest group tomorrow. And then remember that on Friday, we have the People's Council coming in to be able to answer questions for you, help you with your utility bills. Some of you who may need help with that. So be sure to sign in both tomorrow and Friday. So have the most wonderful Wednesday evening. God bless all of you. And
Lisa?
see you tomorrow, okay?
Hello?
Yes, thank you, Ms.
Well,
James.
today's
Take care.
session
Thank you
will
so
be
much.
available later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
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 See ya.
Bye-bye.
Teresa.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Yes, I'm still here. I'm still here.
Will
Go ahead.
today's session be available later? You know, like
I
some of the
rec-
sessions-
I'm recording it as we speak. In fact, let me go ahead and stop it now.
Okay, thank you.
Stop the recording.